Okay, so I hope my screen is visible to you. In case there is any problem, because I think there is some issue maybe in the internet connectivity, so please let me know in case it's not visible or you cannot hear me properly. Okay, so let us start. So before going to the specific service that is being used for NoSQL in Azure, so it is important that we should first understand what is NoSQL. You know, when we used to discuss on DBMS earlier, it was mostly the relational database that we are going to discuss mainly. But now it is like NoSQL is like a part of this important aspect of DBMS. Why? Because as you know that it is the nature of data that is totally changed. Okay, it is not nowadays. It's not only that structured data. Like if you talk about any table, you know that database table, that it contains a table structure, number of columns. Okay, and like every column has some defined data type, and apart from that we have a lot of constraints like foreign key constraint we create, so that multiple tables are related with each other. So all these things we do in a relational database. That's good, that helps us a lot. But the problem is that we have to supply our input data in that order only, right? Because if your data is not in that format, that then that database, that relational database is not going to help you. But nowadays our requirements are different, right? So if you just see the example, I'm talking about two main things. One is a storage of email messages, another is storage of social media data. So this is very common, right? Because you know that most of the work, very important works and the communications that are being done by the email messages. Email is something which is almost inevitable in most of the organizations. So we need to not only we have to work on it, but most of the time we may have to store the email messages, we have to process them, we have to get some value out of them. So it is important to properly store email messages. Now relational database, it has a very restrictive structural data model, right? So which is not suitable for storing the email messages. And of course relational database, you know that it has too many services, right? We can create lot of constraints, index, we have the transaction concepts, isolation levels. So many things are there, and most of the time our requirements are given in such a way that first of all it does not need the structural data model. At the same time it is not required all these relational database services. So we need some alternative for the same. Okay, next comes the storage of social media data. Now social media data is everywhere, you know. It is like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, a lot of services are there, and you know huge amount of data is getting generated, and not only generated, they are being stored, they are being analyzed. So it is being told that if you use social media, if maybe you are doing some post, you are even not doing a post, but maybe you are writing something, or you are giving your comment, and it is now being observed that if you just don't write any comment to another post, but maybe you are giving your reaction, means you are happy, or like you are sad or you are angry, there are a lot of emojis and something are there. So if you respond to some social media message, then also your your thinking, your what I can say, your nature, those things also can be revealed, you know. So that is why it is being like social media data is something which is like it is being saved everywhere. It is inevitable. Social media data everywhere it is, and you have to store, you have to process. Now the problem is that relational model is not appropriate for social media data, because first of all it's a huge amount of data, and then this data, it can be of many different types. Okay, you know that how the social media data can be. It can be some text message, it can be some images, it can be some audio file, it can be some video file, anything it can be. So relational database is not appropriate for it, but these are two examples that you can understand that it is required everywhere. Okay, now to provide this NoSQL thing, there are many services that are available. Okay, it's already available. So a few examples I have given, like Bigtable from Google. So as I told you that if you get familiar with one cloud platform, then it will be easy for you if you have to move on. If you work in any organization, then it is like you will have that experience that as you work for years, then you have to learn a lot of new technologies every day. It all depends on the requirement. Based on your requirement, you have to learn. But if you know one of the cloud platform, then it will be easy for you to move to another cloud platform if it is required. So you can see here that Bigtable is from Google, DynamoDB from Amazon, Cosmos DB from Microsoft Azure, Cassandra from Facebook, and MongoDB. These are the examples of NoSQL database. Okay. Now, when we are talking about NoSQL, it is important to understand the characteristics. Means what are the requirements or what are the expectations from the NoSQL database. So the first characteristics is scalability. It is horizontal scalability. So when you talk about scalability is something like usually it is like increasing something. Okay, so say you have your laptop with say memory of some 4 GB. Okay, now you are working, but one day you found that the applications that you are working on, this 4 GB RAM is not sufficient. So what do you do? Maybe you have two options, right? One is that instead of that 4 GB, you can add some 8 GB of RAM, right? So it's like kind of this 4 GB you are extending up to 8 GB. Maybe that you are just changing the size. That is one way of doing. Another maybe that you keep your 4 GB RAM and then you buy another 4 GB RAM and you add it with the 4 GB. So now what happens? It's like two 4 GB RAM, so it becomes 8 GB and it is helping in your work. So you can understand that I am increasing the resources, or at the same time I can decrease also. Say in one laptop I have 8 GB of RAM, maybe two 4 GB RAMs are available. Okay, now you found that in another machine, maybe someone else is working at your home, and maybe that person is working on something which requires 4 more GB of RAM, and whatever you do, that is sufficient with 4 GB. So what you can do, maybe you can remove one 4 GB RAM and add it to the another machine, right? So that we usually do. It's something which we do, but this is actually scalability. So what is horizontal scalability? When you add more resources with your existing resources to cope up with the requirements of your work, then it is horizontal scalability. And vertical scalability means maybe whatever you have, you just extend the size of the cell. If that is the case, then it is a vertical scalability. So here we are talking about horizontal scalability. Distributed system expanded by adding more nodes of data storage and processing as the data volume grows. So as we are talking about NoSQL data, the two things that we have talked about, the two examples, one was the email thing, another was the social media data. So you can understand that these two types of data, they have the nature of ever expanding, right? So lot of data will be coming in your way and it may be huge sometimes, right? So what you need, that whenever you are designing any system for handling this data, you need the scalability property, because as and when required, you need more storage and more processing power. So that is the one of the main characteristic of any NoSQL database. Then comes availability, replication, and eventual consistency. So I will come to that. So as we have, data we are maintaining, maybe in huge volume data we are maintaining, but our requirement is that it should be highly available. Okay, at no cost we can wait. Okay, availability is very important, because maybe you can see that if you use Google, maybe you are searching for something. Okay, say I was searching for a laptop few days ago. Okay, so I was just looking for the different brands and what features they are giving and what may be the price range. So when I did this, and then I just closed this, and then I went back to my Facebook account, and as soon as I logged into Facebook, then I found that some lot of ads were popping up with the laptop details, that this laptop you can buy, like that. So how it was possible? Because whenever I searched for laptop, this system, this just took my data instantly and processed it, and now it is giving me the advertisement. So that's why you can understand that data we are maintaining, it should be always available. Okay, you cannot wait for it. The processing cannot wait. So availability is one of the most important characteristic, and to maintain availability, what is being done? Replication is required. So we discussed when we talked about database also, I told you that as you take more and more resources, maybe you want replication in different regions, maybe different data centers, different availability zones. Okay, so what is the purpose of this? That as you keep data in multiple locations, maybe the multiple copies, so what will happen? First of all, the availability will improve and read performance will improve, because if your data is everywhere, means wherever you can access fast, if data is available there, so you can read it instantly. So this type of requirement is there. And consistency is something that, when we talked about relational database, then consistency is very important when you are talking about transactional database, right? Because it's like, there can be some multiple transactions going at the same time. Consistent means concurrent transactions are happening, so it should be consistent. So consistency is something which is very important, otherwise there can be lot of concurrency issues may happen, that we discussed when we talked about traditional relational databases. But here we don't need that type of strict consistency, because here, instead of right thing, we have, mainly we, what we do, we have the data and we need to process it immediately. But if you do some, you maybe you can remember that when you go for some strict isolation levels, means if it is serializable means that, like, if there are some four concurrent transactions, then they can process it just one by one. So if that is the case, that when we go for some strict isolation levels, then it's like the performance, it hampers, right? But for our purpose, means for NoSQL database, it's okay to have few concurrency issues, but we cannot deal with right performance. Means performance is very important here, I need it fast always. So for that, instead of serializable consistency, it is known as eventual consistency. So it is like, it is not that strict as compared to serializable consistency. Okay, if you need some more knowledge on isolation level, then I will give you one link of a document that you can refer to have more knowledge on isolation levels. Okay, that is part of your RDBMS. I hope you know from your graduation days maybe, but if you need to refer, I will share one document. Okay, now is sharding of files. What is that? Distribute the load of accessing file records to multiple nodes. So we are talking about two things. By now you could understand that there are two things in NoSQL database. First of all, that it will be huge. It can be of any structure and it is huge. And the second thing is, I need it very fast. I need the best performance. Okay, I cannot wait for the data. Maybe it is huge, but I need whatever I require, that I need very fast. So for that, it cannot be any magic, right? How it is possible? So for that, what is being happened, that it is like multiple nodes are there, or you can say you have a file of huge size. Say I have a file of 100 records, and you have to find something in the 100 records, then it is going to take some time. So instead of that, what you can do, maybe you can divide the file in 5 parts and keep it in 5 locations. So maybe say student id 1 to 20 in file 1, 21 to 40 in file 2, and so on. So if you know that okay, I have 5 files and I have 20 students in each of the file. So if you have to search for a student, then you will go to that particular file and you can just retrieve your data fast, because you don't have to search in 100 records, instead you have to search in only 20 records. So that is the actually basic, you can say basic concept under the NoSQL database, that it makes the processing faster. It always divides the file and put it in multiple locations. High performance data access, so using hashing and range partitioning. So as I told you, that it is always looking for high performance. So I have huge data, at the same time I need high performance. So these two should be fulfilled by any NoSQL database. Okay. NoSQL systems emphasize performance and flexibility over modeling power and complex querying. So, as I told, that we need performance, we need flexibility. Flexibility, why flexibility? Because I have my data of any structure, of any type at huge volume, but I need to keep them, I need to store them, I need to process them, whatever may be the structure of the data. So that much flexibility is required and performance is required. But what I don't need, I don't need the modeling power and complex querying. So modeling power is like, when you talked about relational database, we spend a significant amount of time in data modeling. Okay, we create multiple tables, then we make some relationships between them. So if you really work on any database project, you will find that data modeling is a portion which is the actually the most important part of any database project. So that is a requirement of a relational database, but here it is not the case. Okay, we don't need that much strict modeling, because our data is not that much structured. So that's why we don't need that many tables and the relationship among the tables, we don't need that. And we don't need complex querying. Here the queries are mostly straightforward queries. Okay, it is known as CRUD operation, that means it is search, create, read, update, delete. So most of the time you will find that the operations we are doing, that is straightforward, that is not as complex as relational database. But what is our means, what is our difficulty? That first of all, data can be of huge volume, data can be of any structure, and at the same time I need a very fast performance while we are working on the data. Okay, so that's why the first line, what it is telling, that it emphasizes on performance and flexibility over modeling power and complex querying, not requiring a schema. So as we told, that it actually does not need a very specific schema, allows semi-structured self-describing data, JSON and XML languages used for describing the data. So mainly it is the JSON files and XML files that are being processed here. Okay, less powerful query language. So as we told, that we don't need any complex querying here, and as complex querying is not required, so SQL is a very powerful language which is having a lot of facilities, but those things are not required. It's mostly the straightforward operations that are being done on NoSQL database. Next is the versioning. Some NoSQL systems provide storage of multiple versions of data items with timestamp. So when data is coming, a lot of the times it is like the data is being analyzed, that how the nature is being changed. Say your social media post, so if it is being the same person doing the same type of work, but maybe today how you are reacting, tomorrow you are reacting with a different emotion, and maybe after 7 days the your behavior may change for some reason, right? So that type of data also can be processed, and some characteristics can be generated from that how your behavior has changed over time. So this type of thing like versioning is, that's why here it is required that when the data is coming maybe from the different source, but it is like uh, over time how it is being changed. So this type of versioning is also one requirement of NoSQL database. Okay. So now we understand what are the characteristics of NoSQL database, and now we will talk about the categories. Actually, NoSQL database, as we are telling that it is not structured. Of course, it's not structured like a relational databases, but it may have a different. It is like a semi-structured data. It's being told. Okay, so based on that, there are majorly four categories of NoSQL database. One is the document based NoSQL. So what is that? Data stored in the form of documents. Document means like a file. So known format, well known format is known as the JSON format. Okay, I will give you an article. You can refer that where I have worked on a JSON document. So if you don't know what is a JSON document, you can refer that. You can understand. Documents accessible via their document ID. So it's like a file ID. So it's like you are storing files similar to your Windows Explorer where you can store file. Here also you can store some documents, and the documents are accessible via document ID. So that is one type of NoSQL system where documents are stored. Another NoSQL system is key value store. So when you have talked about any hash join or hashing techniques, hashing techniques searches you have worked on, you know that whenever we are talking about this hashing, then there was the key value concept, right? So there is a key and one value associated with the key. Okay, so here also the same thing, you can store your NoSQL data in key value format. So key should be a specific value, most of the time it should be numeric, but the value that can be anything, it can be a record, object, document, anything it can be. So it's like the key is attached with the value, and based on that key format and how the keys are stored, what is the logic, based on that you can retrieve the value. So it can be in a key value format. That is another type of NoSQL database. Okay, so the third one is column based NoSQL system. So what is that? Here table is partitioned into column families. So it's like say you have a table with some 100 columns. So what you are doing, maybe you are dividing the table, instead of maintaining the entire table at the same place, you maybe partition the table based on the columns, means the similar type of columns you can put it in a one group. Okay, and so the table is divided based on the column. Say I am keeping in 5 groups, 20 columns each. Okay, these 20 columns are some of the columns which are maybe in one group. I am keeping the columns which are related to each other. Okay, so this way I can divide my data. So one thing you can understand so far, that as we have to handle a huge volume of data, at the same time I have to maintain the performance also. So for that it is required that I should partition. Okay, partitioning is everywhere in NoSQL databases, because this partitioning only helps you to do the parallel processing, distributed processing. Okay, so distributed processing is the only way which can help you when you need to process huge amount of data. At the same time you need multiple, you need very fast performance. So if I give one of you, say, one file, that okay, you just write these 100 pages and just give me tomorrow, so maybe it will be very difficult for you, right, to for a person to write all the 100 pages and just give in few hours. So what is the way you can do? Either you can say that no, it's not possible for me to do in such a short time, but what I am giving you, that whatever way you do your work, but give me completed these 100 pages. So what is the alternative way with you? that maybe you can ask your friends that, okay, can you help me? And then maybe all of you, maybe you have some say some 5 friends, so all of the 5 friends sit together, they divide the work among them, maybe 20 pages each, and they complete the writing and give it back. So when you have huge work and you have short time, then only thing is the parallel processing that can help you. So here also the same thing in NoSQL. Okay, the fourth and last one is the graph based NoSQL system. Here the data is represented as graphs. Okay, graph, you know, where you have the nodes and the edges. Okay, so here data is represented in form of node and edges, related nodes found by traversing the edges. So these are the 4 categories of NoSQL database. Okay, so those were the basics about NoSQL database. It is true for any NoSQL database. So you got the concept that what is NoSQL. It can be semi-structured. Most of the time, it is semi-structured. It can be stored in many different ways, either like a document, a table, a key value store, or like a graph. Okay, and the main characteristic is that it is huge in volume, it can be of many different structure, and we always need a very high performance from the data we are storing. Okay, now we are moving to the specific NoSQL database that is offered by Azure. The name is Cosmos DB. Okay, so it's a fully managed NoSQL database. It's a platform as a service. So by now you know what is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So Cosmos DB is a platform as a service. Need to create an Azure Cosmos account in Azure subscription. So whenever you are thinking that, okay, I will use Cosmos DB, so the first thing you have to do is that, of course, you should have your subscription and you have to create an Azure Cosmos account. Okay, inside the account you have to create a database. Inside the database you have to create container. Inside the container you have to create item. Now this database is like, of course, it's not the same as the relational database, but the concept wise you can just think that Cosmos account is outside. Inside the Cosmos account you can have the database. Inside the database you have the container, which is equivalent to a table, and inside the container you have the item, and item is also like equivalent to the you can say the records that we put in the tables in relational database. Okay, Azure Cosmos account is the fundamental unit of global distribution and high availability. So as we told that our requirement from any NoSQL database, that it should be able to store huge volume of data and it should give me fast performance. So for that, what is required, that data should be distributed so that some parallel processing can be done. So whatever distribution and high availability that are being done from the account level. Okay, that's why it is being told that account is the fundamental unit of global distribution and high availability. To create the account, first I need to select an API and data model from the 5 available options. Now it is another thing, we'll talk about that. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, so whenever you are creating an account, you have to select that which API model you want to work on. So before selecting, you should know that which API model is for which purpose, then only you can work on it. So there are actually 5 different API models. Okay, the first one is known as SQL API. So this is, I will tell you that this is the most commonly used API model that you can use, because it is SQL. So it's like whenever you are writing some, you just want to retrieve data from the date from whatever is stored. So it's like the select statements is like, you can use select statement, and that is also very much similar to the select statement you are familiar with the, say, transact SQL language in SQL Server. And if you are doing something new, means you are just first creating your NoSQL database, then it is the API model that you should choose. So what about the other four that we should know? First one is the table API. So what is table API? It is the data in table storage can be migrated to Cosmos DB. So one thing I will tell you, that if you are new, you are trying to start creating a fresh, then you should use SQL API. But rest of the four API models, they are generally used when you are trying to migrate from some existing system. So as I told you that most of the projects, actually many of the projects in the industry, it is being done on migration. So when we talked about Azure SQL, then also I told you that maybe I have some databases on premise, I want to move it to cloud. So this is one type of project. And maybe you have your Cosmos DB in some other environment, and now you want to move it to Cosmos DB. So these features are being given so that you don't need to rewrite if you want to use any um, use any service. Say you came to know about Cosmos DB, and you liked it, and you think that okay, it would be good if I start working in Cosmos DB. But maybe your your existing NoSQL data is maintained in somewhere else. So it's not possible that you will write from scratch. So better you will avoid. But if the system is giving you some features that you can easily move your existing application to this new environment, then you may be interested, right? So that's why this type of features are given in most of the services, so that people can be encouraged to move to the new systems. Okay, so table API is something we talked about, table storage. So if you have your data in table storage, then you can migrate to Cosmos DB by using this table API. Then another API is MongoDB API. So you can understand that when you want to migrate from MongoDB database. So MongoDB is a NoSQL database. It is actually for long it is there. So you can use, say you if you are using MongoDB database, okay, for storing your NoSQL data, and you have some MongoDB applications also to access that data. Now if you really want to move to Cosmos, then you have to use the MongoDB API, where data in the MongoDB database can be migrated to Cosmos, and the existing MongoDB application can be used to access the data. So that is the main advantage. Means you have your application where lot of core logic is written. So it would be good if you can use your existing application, right? Otherwise, it would be very difficult to write everything. So here, if you use MongoDB API, then you can move your data from MongoDB database to Cosmos, and you can use your MongoDB application, your existing MongoDB application, to access that data. Then comes the Cassandra API. So Cassandra is a NoSQL database from Facebook. So it provides Cassandra-like programming interface for Cosmos DB. So if you want to move from Cassandra to Cosmos, then you should use Cassandra API. And the last one is the Gremlin API. It implements a graph database interface to Cosmos DB. So all these four are from the existing databases, existing NoSQL databases, if you want to move to Cosmos. And if you are new, you just trying to just create from scratch, then you can use SQL API. Okay, now the different account components of Cosmos DB. So as I told, that first thing is, whenever you have an account, you have to start with database. Okay, so one or multiple Azure Cosmos database you can create under the account. It is analogous to a namespace and the unit of management for a set of containers. So where you will create your container? Inside the database. So first you create your account. Inside the account you create your database. Inside the database you create your container. Inside the container you create your item. Okay, so how to do it? The step by step process, that you can refer the article where it is given how to do the step by step process, and some sample JSON document is also given. JSON documents are nothing but the items here. So as an item, you can upload a document, a JSON document, and then you can write various queries on the JSON document. And these queries are exactly not equal to the Transact SQL language, but you will find it similar, very similar to the SQL language. Then another thing is throughput, that you will find that what is throughput? It is required for the containers to run writes, reads, updates, and deletes on the item. Okay, so throughput is nothing but is like the processing power. So whenever you are working, say in the container, you are uploading the items, you are removing the items, you are modifying something, you are writing some queries, so some processing power is required, right? Means some processing unit, some memory, internal processing power is required, so that is being done by the throughput. So you have to select your throughput. Okay, so I think by now you understand that if you go for some higher configuration, then you will get better performance, but at the same time you have to pay more. And if you go for the lower configuration, lower throughput, then what will happen? Your performance may hamper when you have a huge data load you have to work on, but at the same time you have to pay less. So it is all dependent on what is your requirement, and based on your requirement you have to select the configuration. It is very very important, otherwise you will end up with the your performance requirement may not be filled, and your uh, cost management will also be failed. Okay, so let me go to the home page. I think my uh, portal is visible to you. One thing is this Cosmos DB, you can use it for free as well. Okay, so you don't really need to have one account. Without that also you can create your Cosmos DB account for 30 days. It is free. So if you don't have any Azure account, still you can use it. Okay, I will give you the details of the link also, where from you can start working on Cosmos DB. That to you, for using that you don't need your credit card details and all that. Okay, so first of all I start with creating a resource. I give the name Cosmos DB, Azure Cosmos DB. So I press the create button. Okay, so now you can see here that it is showing you these 5 types of API models. Okay, which one you should use. So as I told you that Azure always gives you the guidelines for using it. So you can see here for each of the API models it has some description also is given, so you can just read it and you can understand yourself that which one you should use. So I am selecting the SQL API model. Okay, so as I have come here, so it is like similar to other services that you have used so far. So first of all you have to select the subscription. I have only one, so it is showing me. Then you have to select the resource group. Again I can select from the existing resource groups, or I can create a new. So I'm selecting the existing resource group. Then I have to provide a account name for my Cosmos DB. Okay, so I'm giving Cosmos 1. I'm giving the name. So you can see here that it is always processing the name. Any name you are giving, it will always process, and it will let you know that if the name is valid or not. If the name is not valid, then you have to select any alternative name. Next is location. So I have to select the location where I want to create my Cosmos DB. So it has all the locations available, and if you have any specific requirement, then you can select, otherwise it's good to go with the default one. Okay, now you can see the capacity mode. So you have to select, you can see here there are two options. Earlier it was only throughput, but now as with other services for Azure SQL also, I told you that there can be the serverless model. Here also this option of serverless model is there. So serverless model means that you don't have to keep any resource with you, like dedicated resources not required. It's like whenever required, means say whenever you are writing any query, that query will be processed and you will be charged only for that time duration. So that is known as the serverless capacity mode. So you can select either of them. So let me keep with the provision throughput for now. And it is saying something that with Azure Cosmos DB free tier, you will get fast 1000 RUs and 25 GB of storage for free in an account. You can enable free tier on up to one account per subscription estimated this. So it is telling you that it is like it's a free tier discount you will get. So you will get this many RU per second is the unit for throughput, and 25 GB of storage that is available. So you can use that. So I'm just putting it as apply. If you go to other tabs, these are some global distribution. So I told you that, as you know, that Azure Cosmos DB account is the unit of global distribution. So how much distribution you need? So you can see here geo redundancy you can enable, multi-region rights you can enable. So it's like how many places you want to keep your data, the copies of your data, so that it can be easily accessible. So of course you understand that if I enable these options, then I have the global distribution features, but at the same time I have to pay. So it all depends on your requirement, and based on that you have to do it. So for now I don't change anything. Then there is the network connectivity, that how it will be connected. So you know that it is always secured whatever service you create, and it all depends on your configuration, that who and when can access your data. So here also you can see the connectivity method, and you can change it, means either it's all network, public endpoint, or private endpoint. So I keep with the all network option. Then you have a lot of backup policies, like how your data will be backed up, where it should be. So a lot of, you can see that it is trying to make sure that your data has multiple copies, so that it is like your high availability requirement and your performance requirements are always fulfilled. Okay, so I just keep whatever is given, the default ones. And this is encryption, how the data encryption will be there. Then there is the review plus create button, and here after reviewing all the details, you can see here validation success, so I can create my account. Okay, so the account is getting created. So this notification tab always gives you the details of whatever deployment is going on. If there is success or there is failure, every detail you will get it here. And if there is a failure, then you can get even the details of it, that why it failed, and you can always go back and change the details, and you can start again. Okay, so this environment you can be familiar only when you use it. So again, it's recommended that you should create your account and try to work on it. And Cosmos DB is something that if you still don't have any account, you can use it for free. Okay, so deployment is in progress, it is still running. Mm, let me go back to the home page. Okay, for now, when the deployment is going on, I will show you something. So this is the article that anyway I'll give you, so you can just follow it for step by step processing, how it is working, what are the different elements that you can use. Okay, how to add your item, everything is there. It's like you will find it similar to the Azure storage service. So if you remember, for blob storage we created container. Inside the container we uploaded a file, right? It was a CSV file we uploaded. But here also you have to create a container, and you have to upload an item, and the item should be a JSON file. Okay, so here you can see that this is a JSON file. If you try to follow it, it is like some hierarchical structure is given on the data. Okay, so the file I am using it here, this file is a I have taken from Microsoft site. And if you just search in Google about JSON files, then also you will get lot of files about it. So if you just go through the file, I will try to tell you about the file. That you can see here, it is starting with a curly brace. So this is the record, okay. As I told you that item is equivalent to a record, so these are the fields of the record. You can see id is some value. This is the id, this is the value. So here id is Anderson family, last name is Anderson. Then there is the parents, and for parents I have some multiple values. So for this id say column, I have one value Anderson family, but for parents I have two values, okay. So that's why it is like it is starting with the square bracket, and inside that you can see that there are two first names given. So it's like parents, there are two parents, right? So that's why it is coming like that. And then you can see the children. So inside the children, if there can be multiple children, so it is given like that. Say the first name, gender, grade, and the pets means here the children having the pets. So it's like a hierarchical structure. So it started with the family, then under the family there is children, under the children there can be pets, okay. And it can have multiple pets as well. So it is coming like that. Then there is address, then the other columns are given. So under address you can see that it is starting with the curly braces. So address is a compound data type, right? So it has multiple parts. You know that it is a multi-valued attribute. So it's like address may have the state component, country component, city component, right? So when we fill our address details, some places it's like multiple parts are given, right? When we fill up any form, and some people give some text box and where you have to provide everything. So address always have multiple components. So then I have these other values. So you can understand that what this item is about. This item is about a family. Now if you just see the item 2, it is again a family detail, but it's about another family. So you can see id is Wakefield family, and then it has parents, and it has a single parent. You can see that here this parent, no sorry, it has two parents, but each parent has two attributes. If you just go up here, this each of the parent has only first name, but here these parents have two attributes. One is the family name, one is the given name. And then the children is having, you can see here, these are the attributes of the children, the pets. So this here these children, that particular child has two pets, so the pet names are given. Then there is this another child who is not having any pet, then the address and so on. So what you could understand from the data, that two records. So if you just consider item 1 as one record, item 2 as another record, so one thing you can conclude that these two records are not the same, their internal structure is not the same. So some of the records may have parent, some of the record may not have. Some of the records have one child, some of the record have two children. Some of the record have the child has pet, some of the record has maybe two pets or zero pets. So it's like the internal structure of each of the record is like variable. So that's why it's not possible to maintain this type of data in relational databases. It's very difficult. But if you see that it can be easily copied, and it can be processed in the Cosmos DB. So this resource is created. So you can see here that this is my Cosmos DB. So it is like asking me for something quick start. I go to overview page, and from here I can add container. Okay, so before creating the container I should have a database. So as I told you that inside the account, the first thing is database. Inside the database there should be container. Inside the container there should be the item. Okay, so whenever you are trying to create a container, you have to first create a database, and then you have to mention the throughput details also. Okay, and based on that you can create your container. And you will find one more thing that is known as partition key is very important. Partition key means that as I told that when you are maintaining this type of data, the first requirement you had that you want it very fast performance, right? So data is always partitioned, then only it is like the performance can be maintained. So whenever you are starting with creating your container, so it is asking you that which field in the items that you are going to use as a partition key. Okay, so you have to mention something from your JSON files that you are going to create in this container. Say I can create a new container for family, and then inside the family container I will keep two of these items, and the ID column, you can see the if you remember, this ID column is like I can keep as a partition maybe. Okay, so that's how we can create our container. We can keep our items, and we can like retrieve data from the file. So you can find one thing that it is easy, that I have data with this type of structure which is really far away from the table structure that we used to know, that whenever we have a table, we first had to create a schema, we had to define the table structure, and then we could add data having the same structure. So if it is a student table and having the column student ID, student name, address, say phone number, etc., then I had to supply data always in that order. If I had one address column, then I could supply only one address, right? For every student record I had to supply one address. But here the thing is different. I don't have to, first of all, I don't have to, I'm just creating a container, that's it. I don't have to define any structure for the container, and directly I can upload the items which are having different structure, right? Some of the item has different columns, some of the items have different other column, but overall they are same. They are about the families, and then I can, I can use these files to retrieve data, and I can join data also from these two items. So just go through this article. It will give you the step by step process. Okay, that starting from creating a container, then uploading the item, then writing various queries on the items. So if you just at least try those queries, then you will have a good idea about it, like how I'm using it. So these two files apparently they are quite different, but you will find that I have written some queries where I am just joining the data from these two items. So that easy it is, and that's how it is possible to handle this type of data and retrieve information from this data. So of course you understand by now that this type of thing is not possible, I'm not telling, but is very difficult, to handle with the relational database. Okay, so that was about Azure Cosmos DB. I hope you understood about the NoSQL concept and the what is Cosmos DB, how to create it, and you should refer the document which is having the screenshots and the step by step. Every information is given. So if you just go through it, I hope that you can do it yourself. Okay. So let me move on. If you have any question, you can ask. Okay. So we understood about NoSQL database, and now we are going to another concept, that is the warehouse. Okay, so if you, I think you know from your DBMS course in maybe in the degree, that when we talk about DBMS, we don't talk about databases, but we talk about the warehouse also. So warehouse is something which is again a database only. Okay, but with some differences. So it is important that we should have the fundamentals of warehousing. So I assume that maybe all of you are not aware about warehouse, so it's good that we should have some introductory discussion about warehouse, that we'll do today, and the Azure service about data warehouse, that we'll discuss in the next class. So what is a warehouse? It is a database designed to enable business intelligence activities. Now again, what is business intelligence? Business intelligence is something like when you want to gain some information from the data. Okay, that Of course, you know that we are doing it in various ways. So business intelligence is something which was there from long back. I can say more than 20 years or so we are working on business intelligence, where maybe I am just using the data to retrieve some information, to have created some analytical solution, or I can generate some reports. So everything together is known as business intelligence. Now what it contains, actually, if you just make a difference between a database and warehouse, generally database is something which contains the data of the day to day data, transaction data. But when we generally create warehouse, it is something which we populate our historical data. So if you talk about a bank, say, okay, so the bank has lot of transactional data every day. It's being generated, means a lot of customers they are working, say I have a net banking facility, so I go to my banking website, I create some fixed deposits, I move some money to mutual fund, I do a lot of things on bank, right? I can transfer to some other third party accounts. So all these things we do, these are called known as the transaction data. So every day a huge number of transaction data is getting generated, okay? And if we maintain every transactional data in your database, then what will happen, that every day maybe lakhs and lakhs of records are getting generated. So it will be huge, ultimately it will be huge amount of data that will be stored, and then its processing power will go down. It will actually cannot process every time. There will be a lot of weight. So what we generally do, that we don't maintain older data in the transactional databases. So what we do, we move the older data to some other databases, because sometimes it's not possible to delete everything. Why? Because that data may be required for some other purposes, some record purpose, some history purpose. So say I have my banking net banking facility, where I can generate my mini statement for say last 6 months. But if I need some mini statement for last 2 years or 3 years something, so that data also is required, but I cannot keep everything in the same database, then the performance will go down. So for that, what is being happen, that we move our historical data so to some other place. So that is the warehouse. So generally we keep not the current data, not the transaction data, but the historical data that we keep in the warehouse, designed for query and analysis on data from different sources. So we just, it's like a warehouse. Warehouse is the literal meaning. So warehouse is something where the companies, they keep their materials, their the finished products or some storage purpose, huge things are kept in warehouses. So here also the same thing, we keep data from different sources, we accumulate here in the warehouse, so that some query and analysis can be done on the data. It maintains generally historical, because that you have to be very clear, that generally warehouse contains the old data, historical data. So what we can do on the data, we can query the data, we can analyze the data to gain some knowledge about the data, and maybe it can help me in the improvement of the business. So the bank management, they may analyze the last 5 years data, and then they can come to some conclusion that okay, these products are actually helping me to grow my business, or maybe these products are totally outdated, they are not being used by most of the customers, so I can think of drop off the that service, or I can change it. So lot of information, lot of insights can be gained when you analyze your older data. So that is the main purpose of warehouse, loaded through ETL process from multiple data sources, and ELT for modern DW. Now two terms are there, one is ETL. ETL is known as extract, transform, load. So that was the older process, means originally we used to do ETL always. So what is ETL? Like, you are extracting from different source systems, then you are making the changes to your data, all the required changes, so that it can be put in your system. Okay, so you are just extracting from sources, you are modifying it, and then you are keeping it. So that is known as the ETL process. But nowadays what is happening, that your data is coming maybe huge amount of data, and it is not always batch data, means it can be a real time data, right? So if your data is coming from say some IoT device though, so what will happen, the huge speed data is coming from the source system in a speed. So it may not be possible that every time the data is coming you are making some changes, you are transforming the data. So if you are doing these many processes, then what will happen, the next set of data that is coming, that may be lost, right? So if lot of things are coming to you, then what we generally do, we first keep them somewhere, right, and then we process them. So that concept is known as ELT, where it is extract, load, and transform. So here, first of all, we extract the data, then we load it somewhere, and then we make the changes to the data. Okay. So earlier warehouse meant and it was ELT only, sorry, ETL only, but now it is ETL and ELT both. Okay. So that is the warehouse concept you understood. Now there are two more terms you may hear if you have to work on warehouse. That is, one is known as data mart, another is known as operational data store or ODS. Now a lot of people ask that what is the difference between data mart and data warehouse? Okay, so for very simple thinking, you can understand that data mart is something which is a very specific subset from the warehouse. Okay, say from the bank, everything, every data, all of the data that is getting generated, maybe the older data, say 1 month older data, you are putting it in the warehouse, everything whatever is coming in your way. Now maybe the bank management, they want to analyze how the fixed deposits are going on, or how the mutual funds are going on, how the shares are going on. So if that is the specific requirement, then it's like if you give access to the entire warehouse, then it may be difficult first of all to find out. Then for the specific requirement, data needs to be maybe modified, some calculations need to be done. So it's difficult, right, for searching something specific from the entire data collection. So for that, what is being done, data marts are created. So what is a data mart? It is like it's like a specific scope and coverage. Okay, so say I want to do the analysis only on the fixed deposit data. So instead of the entire banking data, it's only the fixed deposit data that is being stored here in the data mart, and the whatever the queries are getting executed, the analysis is being done. So it is easy, right? First of all, it is a subset of data, so the volume is less, and the data is of similar type, all the data is about the fixed deposit. So it is easy to work on, okay, performance wise also, and like it is convenient also. Now, this data mart can be of two types. One is the independent data mart, another is the dependent data mart. So, what is independent data mart? That whatever is your source data, you are directly creating the data mart from your source data. Then it's an independent data mart. And dependent data mart means it is like first of all your data is coming to the warehouse, and from the warehouse you are taking the dependent data mart. Now when we are telling about say it's a subset of warehouse, then we have to keep in mind that the data should be consistent. Say my from my database, data is coming to warehouse, from warehouse I am giving some subset to the data mart, so the work is going on. Now some changes have come from the database, so that change should be reflected in the warehouse as well as in the data mart. If you don't give that change to the data mart, then what will happen, there will be different versions in the warehouse and in the data mart. So that is not recommended. So as you are maintaining your data in multiple places, of course you can understand that if you say you are creating a project document maybe, and then you are keeping in two folders. So whenever you are making change to one document in one folder, then you should make the same change to the other document as well, because if you don't do that, then what will happen, the two documents will have two different versions, and that is not recommended. So that's why if you are maintaining the data marts, then you have to always think of the consistency also. Okay, you have to maintain the consistency. Next comes the operational data store. So this is something which is not always present. It is you can say it's kind of a older concept where it is something like, instead of directly moving your data from database to warehouse, it's something, a staging area, you can say. So the first of all, the data is coming from database to ODS, where it is cleaned and validated, and then the data is copied to the warehouse. So that is operational data store. So when you talk about warehouse, then it can be of different types. Okay, and what are the characteristics? That it is like, it is subject oriented, of course, that it stores data for a particular subject or area, query and analysis done on the same subject. So generally, say I create a warehouse, so maybe it's all the net banking data from the customers I'm keeping in a warehouse. So it's, you can understand that this warehouse for this banking purpose only. Okay, and all the queries will be on that subject. Integrated, consistent and error free data needs to be stored, of course, that whenever you are bringing the data from the database, so as it is historical data, generally it is like not many changes. Okay, when you are talking about relational database or that transactional database, it has a lot of changes maybe every moment. But when you are talking about warehouse, then you have a huge volume of data, but as the data is historical, it does not need change at every moment. Maybe some, for some specific requirements, some changes coming, so you have to reflect that change, but it doesn't mean that every time there is a change. So it's a historical data and there is less changes. Okay, so you have to ensure that the data is consistent and error free and non volatile. So is very important, as I told you, that it does not require changes. The change, when you really want to do any change to a warehouse, actually you have to go through some process. Generally, if you are maintaining any warehouse and you want to make some changes, then you have to take some approvals. There is a definite process. You have to inform everyone that I'm maintaining the data warehouse, I'm making some changes. So generally there should not be any change, so the data should be non-volatile. Then time variant, large amounts of data of different timeline required for trend analysis, pattern recognition, etc. So as I told you, that time variant means the, maybe the same customer data I may maintain for days and months and years, and I can do some trend analysis, that the how the customer behavior is changed, how the preferences of the customer has changed, right? So based on that, I may have to generate some recommendations for the customer, some offers for the customer. So it all depends on how the customer is behaving. So this type of trend analysis, pattern identification, that is being done with the time variant data. Now, this is again a very common question that is being asked in many places, that what is the difference between OLTP and data warehouse? Okay, so OLTP is your traditional database. Say if I take SQL database. So whenever we are talking about database, we always talk about normalization because we want to avoid redundancy, as we have to make a lot of changes. So it is important that our data should not be redundant in our databases. So for that, we maintain normalization at least to 3NF. Okay, but DW is a denormalized database, means it is like you may maintain many columns in the same table. So you may have data redundancy, but that will help you to write your queries faster. Okay, because you know that as you go for normalized database, then you may have multiple tables. So there will be no redundant or duplicate data, but whenever you are writing queries, you have to join all the tables and then only you can get the data. But if it is a denormalized database, then it is something like everything is in the same database. So like whenever you need the data, you can instantly just write one query and you can get the data. That is the requirement for warehouse. In warehouse, we don't make a lot of changes. What we do, we write a lot of queries on the huge amount of data. So that's why denormalized is the feature of warehouse. Okay, OLTP systems support only predefined operations. So whenever we write any database, generally we write the stored procedures as well. And most of the time, those stored procedures are only executed. So it's like a predefined thing. But DW, it has the data and any type of queries ad hoc queries can be written for data analysis can be done. Okay, and data modifications are frequent in OLTP. As I told you that if it is a transactional database, lot of changes may be there, but DW rarely modified. Okay, as I told you that if you really want to make some changes, you have to follow a process, you have to take approvals, you have to let everyone know, then only you are allowed to do the data modification. OLTP queries work on less number of records as compared to DW. Of course, that, as I told you, that maybe the transactional database is containing last 6 months of data, and the warehouse may contain the last 10 years of data, and so on. So it's always huge data in DW. OLTP does not keep historical data. DW maintains mainly used for storing and analyzing historical data. So in OLTP or the transactional databases, we try to keep the current data only, right? Because we work on current data. Maybe just 1 month back or 6 month back data is there, but DW is like it is only for historical data. We don't keep current data in DW. Whatever historical data we have that we want to vary, we want to keep for maintenance, we want to keep for record and all type of analysis, we use DW. So these are the differences. If you understand the differences, then you can understand the difference between any transactional database and the warehousing. So that is the major difference between transactional database and warehouse. And in the next session we'll discuss about the data warehousing service in Azure. So